Welcome to the regular briefing session of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. Today we are briefing the Thursday, August 19th meeting. Today we're going to begin our facilities with the latest report, good and bad news on COVID-19. And this comes from Joshua Swift, who is the man who runs the Forsyth County Board of Health, and they have really been working hard day and night. Most people don't realize that, but Joshua, I know you're there, so take it over and take it easy.
All right. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for having me this afternoon. I have the presentation up that you should be able to see. And a brief update is that we had 123 new cases today. As you can see, we've had over 1,000 cases of COVID-19 in the last 14 days. Our average is now 75 cases per day, and our percent positive is 8.7%. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've had 432 deaths. You can see the percent of our total population that is fully vaccinated or at least one dose of vaccine. And I'll show a slide in a minute that shows a map of the state, but our level of community transmission is high per the CDC. There's only 4 levels, and high is the highest level, and that's where we are. So our vaccine distribution, you've seen this slide before. I won't go through all the details in every line. I would note that the numbers are continuing to go up. Our vaccination rate, we have 51%, as I already said, of the total population partially vaccinated compared to 48% fully vaccinated. That's for the total population. But if you look at our percent of adults 18 and over that are partially vaccinated, we're at 62% compared to 61% for the whole state. And 59% of Forsyth County adults are fully vaccinated compared to 58% across the state. And another number that we're really paying close attention to are groups are the 12 to 17-year-olds. They're 36% partially vaccinated as we move into school starting back in a few weeks. Then 18 to 24-year-olds are now at 46%. And just in the past few weeks, we have over 50% now of 25 to 49-year-olds who are partially vaccinated. This next slide is regarding CDC mask guidance. Per the CDC last week, it's a recommendation that everyone, whether they're vaccinated or not, wear a mask in public, especially in areas of substantial or high transmission. Last week, we were in orange because we had substantial transmission. Now you can see we are red, the highest level for high transmission in Forsyth County. This next slide is looking at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation. This is out of the University of Washington. And this was a metric that we looked at last spring of 2020 when we were looking at what could happen as the number of cases increased, and we could look at hospitalizations and the forecast for deaths. As you can see, this metric shows the highs that we saw in late December and January of 2020 and 2021. You can see how we had the slow down in the spring through the summer, but then you can see where we are now as of August, and we could, worst case scenario, go back to where we were in late December, early January. Either way, it looks like we're going to continue to see an increase through the next month unless the mask, we have exceptionally high level of mask use and our number of vaccinations drastically increase. And then the last slide, talking about gift cards. On the 19th of July, we started using the gift cards from the state, which were $25 a piece for persons getting their first dose, and for $25 for a person that would transport someone to get their first dose. As of last week, we had 919 gift cards available. We'd given out 581 in the first few days, and you can see that just our number of doses, it drastically increased from the 10 days before we gave out the vaccine, the gift cards, compared to the 10 days afterwards. Yesterday, we started the $100 a person. That was per state guidance. We had a conference call with the state at noon on Tuesday. They advised us to change immediately per President's direction from the federal government and then to the state to start giving $100. So 4 $25 gift cards per person that came to get their first dose, still staying with $25 for a person that's transporting someone. And yesterday we had right at 300 people come through the health department and to our event combined, 300 at the health department and at Crystal Towers. So we gave out all of our gift cards. We were done by 4:30 yesterday. We're hopeful that we'll be able to get some by the beginning of next week. It's possible that some could come in late today or early tomorrow, but we've told people that have come through to look. We put that out on the media. We put it out on Facebook, trying to make it as broadly available when we ran out, and we'll do the same and make sure people know when we get the gift cards in. And this is a temporary promotion from the state and federal government for the month of August to use these gift cards. So that concludes my presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
I'll start with the questioning right quick. Mr. Swift, the question is, how do you get people? What you just talked about leads me to believe about 48% of the people in our area have not, for some reason or another, taken advantage of the opportunity to get vaccinated. I mean, when the government starts giving you money and begging you to come and you don't do it, what's it going to take?
Unfortunately, I think it's going to take some people being personally affected, either themselves or a family, and that's unfortunate. We are hearing stories about people that have long COVID, so maybe they have minor symptoms, but they continue to have those symptoms. We all know of people that have died, or maybe they didn't die, but they spent several weeks or several months in the hospital and are still, months later trying to recover. So it's that's the frustrating piece. That's the piece that adds some more gray hairs to the ones I already had. But it's we're working hard. The staff here in public health, for 18 months, have been working hard, and we had the capacity at the fairgrounds to continue seeing thousands of people a day, almost 2,000 people a day. And in that 1st of April, we hit a wall where people stopped coming. Hopefully, with the gift cards and people seeing that it's still out there, that Delta now is more contagious, maybe that'll convince people to come in.
I keep having a picture in my mind of someone saying, well, my child is on a ventilator and temperature is not, I hope the good Lord will allow him to live. Well, if you don't get the vaccination done, I would say the good Lord's even pitching in, trying to get folks to get the shot. Do we have any? Oh, and by the way, one other thing, just out of curiosity, what type of hours are the folks at the Forsyth County Public Health Department keeping? Because my impression is you're working day and night just to get done what we've gotten done.
Yeah, the staff are working numerous hours. We have a vaccine will be here to past 8 this evening, offering vaccine. We are going out into the community on nights and weekends. And as you know, it's just like any business. When you open the doors at 10, let's say, or if we have a vaccine event that starts at 10, there's people working at 7:30 to get ready.
Mm-hmm. Commissioners, any further questions or comments?
I've got one question and one request. And the question is, in terms of our new cases, what is that age distribution? Is this a younger population?
It's primarily a younger population, yes.
Because
that's our least vaccinated.
Sorry.
I was just going to say, Dr. Martin, that's our least vaccinated population is our younger population.
And so most of the new cases are in our younger population. That's what I was trying to ask.
Most are.
Yes, sir. And the second, that one is just more of a request. I think now that we're back into mask in the building, et cetera, maybe we could have these updates now more periodically. Like I don't know if we need it weekly, but maybe every other week, kind of update like this.
Yes, sir.
Further questions or comments from the commissioners?
I have.
Ted Kaplan.
Joshua, what is the effective dates or time for the shots if you've had both Pfizer shots or the others? I'd heard somewhere over 6 months. Is some clarification on that?
Well, it depends on, more information is coming out, more studies are being done about the efficacy over time. We do know that there are concerns about people that are immune compromised, either by age or maybe they have an illness or cancer treatment. I do anticipate in coming months there will be some guidance about those individuals being able to get a booster shot. But something I've told people, told our Health and Human Services board members and told others, is the best booster shot right now is for everybody around you to get the vaccine.
When did the health department start giving the shots?
December 23rd.
That was December. So the folks that got it then may, because we did the older folks first, right?
Yes, sir. 65 and older.
So are they still protected, in your opinion?
They are still protected.
8 months out, 8 months out, 8, 9 months out.
They're still protected, but I would say with Delta, we're seeing it is much more contagious. Data is showing from the CDC that it is as contagious as the common cold or chicken pox, and we know how contagious that is. So that's why you see this new mask recommendation that's come out from the CDC. So I think it's very important that people still do that. And if you're immune compromised, I would recommend that you take precautions as far as large gatherings as well.
Thank you.
Additional questions, comments?
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Elamine.
Joshua, thank you for the report, as always. I know we have relatively short time with the data on the new variants impact, but eventually, will you be able to break it down into specific zip codes like you did before with other information?
You're asking, will we be able to? I'll have to check and see if we can. That's a discussion at the state about the sequencing of positive tests now. Not every positive test is sequenced, but when they do the samples, that's where they're seeing that predominantly now it is the Delta variant. I don't know really if we can drill it down to the variant is in this zip code compared to that another zip code, but I'll look and see.
Thank you very much.
Joshua Swift, thank you very much for all you do and all your staff does, and best of luck to you from here on out. It's going to be a tough road to hoe, I think, but thank you for this report.
Mr. Chairman, could I just add one thing? I think it was to Commissioner Martin's question. So what we've thought about doing at the staff level is going ahead and have Joshua update us at every briefing as long as the cases are going up. And then when they start going down, if they go down we'll sort of stop that and go back to just briefing at every formal meeting once the cases have been down for 2 weeks. And so that's sort of what we were thinking. Hopefully that's okay.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, okay.
Makes all the sense in the world. Thank you, Joshua. Now we're going to turn to Courtney Driver. Courtney, are you here? Live and in living color. For those who may not know Courtney, if you drink water in Forsyth County, or if you have a sewer system or both, you can thank her because she's one of those that helps turn the wheels that make it happen. First, we have the best in the health business. Now we got the best in the water and sewer business. Courtney, what's going on?
Okay, thank you. Let me get my technology. Okay, I think I'm good. Okay. So, good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Commission. Thank you for having me. This is my biannual update for the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Utilities Department. As most have experienced, we have had another challenging year. We're not, it's no different from anybody else, but I am proud of our staff and our employees for their hard work and dedication, and like you said, continue to provide the critical services to this community. So, just a reminder for you and for those watching that we are a joint agency between the county and the city. We're governed by the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Utility Commission, which has members appointed by the county commissioners and the Winston-Salem City Council. The Utilities Department itself, the employees are City of Winston-Salem employees, and we have basically 6 different divisions: administration, water treatment, wastewater treatment, solid waste, utilities field operations, and meter services. Our department has about 380 employees, and we're 24/7, 365 days a year operation. As I mentioned, we are a joint agency formed by the merger of the city and the county water and sewer systems in 1976, and solid waste disposal service was added in 1990, and then we're an enterprise fund, which means we're not funded by local taxes, it's by user fees, so your water and sewer bill and your tipping fees you pay at the landfill. Just a quick water and sewer update. Like many, we've had impacts from COVID, and this is a graph of our past due balance history. So it's from May 2020 through June 2021. The blue bar shows that the current past due balance compared to the orange bar, which would have been the year previous to that. We hit a high point in October of last year of $5.6 million in past due balances. We are seeing a good trend, downward trend. As of June, we're at $3.4 million. And we continue to partner with agencies who can help provide assistance to customers if they have financial needs. There's also programs like ERAP, which is Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And it's not just for rent, it's for utilities too. So we're trying to market that to our customers and letting them know that that assistance is available. This graph just shows our delinquent accounts. So we have about 130,000 accounts, You can see that we still on the same kind of downward trend, but as of June, we still have 10,000 accounts that are delinquent. We finished the year last year, this is water and sewer revenues. We finished the year over what we had projected our budget to be, so we're at 119 million. This is not where we had projected we would be at this time, though, if COVID hadn't happened. So pre-COVID, we thought we'd be higher than this. So last spring, when we were preparing our budget, we knew that there would be COVID impacts, and so we decreased what we budgeted for revenues, and we're conservative, which is good. So we made that, but we're still not back to where we thought we would be. And then this is our capital improvement plan. This was just recently adopted by the Utility Commission and the City Council. The budget year appropriations for water and sewer project was $73.8 million, and over a 6-year planning window, we look to be spending about almost $409 million on capital projects for water and sewer. And then this is also part of our budget process. This is the water and sewer expenditure summary. In FY21, our expenditures were about $92.7 million. In FY22, an increase to $98.8 million. This is a little less than 7%. I'm sure, as everybody knows, prices for materials, equipment, everything is extremely high. And so we had to accommodate for these increased costs. We're taking an item to the Utility Commission on Monday for chemicals at our wastewater treatment plant, and the increase is around 20% from what we previously spent last year. So we're definitely seeing the impacts of that. The adopted rate for FY22 was a 3.5% increase. This was in line with our peer utilities across the state. We did not increase rates last year due to COVID. And the year prior, we did not have a volumetric increase. So it had been a while since we had an increase. This is about a $2.15 bi-monthly increase because we bill every other month for what we consider our light user, and then a $3.50 cent increase for what is our average customer. And then this is an important graph because it compares us to what others are paying for utilities across, with other utilities our size. So Charlotte, Durham, can't see that, Greensboro, High Point, Raleigh, and then us. And you can see our rates are very competitive compared to our peers. Our average customer will pay for monthly, this is breaking down monthly, a little over $50 a month for both water and sewer.
Could you go back to that?
Yeah.
Who is the, let me see, who is it behind the bar that I can't see where it says stop sharing?
Yeah, that's High
You go
Point.
Charlotte, Durham, what's next?
So it's Charlotte, Durham, Greensboro, and then High Point, and then Raleigh, and then us. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So switching gears to the solid waste division, similar side to what I showed earlier. This is the solid waste revenues. We did meet our budget. The blue bar shows our actuals for 2021. They were less than 2020, but we still met our budgeted revenues. This is the capital improvement plan for solid waste. The total year budget appropriations that were requested and approved for the solid waste projects was around $450,000, and over a 6-year planning window, around $18 million. Solid waste expenditures, and I'm having that same problem where I can't see the because of that stop sharing. Let me switch.
There is rescue coming. Rescue is here.
Oh, it says, I guess I can do hide. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sorry about that. So the solid waste expenditure summary for FY21, $11.5 million, requested and approved for FY22 is 11.8. Again, an increase to accommodate for some increased costs. And then the rate recommendation on the solid waste side, we did not recommend any changes in the fees at any of our solid waste facilities. This was supported by our cost of service study and cash flow projections. Solid waste in general is a little bit different than water sewer. It's very competitive, and there's a lot of different options as far as landfills. So here again, we're comparing ourselves to other publicly owned landfills. You can see Davidson County, High Point, Raleigh, Rowan, Winston-Salem. We again have very competitive rates compared to our peers. And then there's 2 transfer facilities with Durham and Greensboro. They have slightly higher rates because it's a transfer facility. They don't landfill at that site. They have to transfer the garbage to another site. So some of our accomplishments this year, we completed year 5 of our collection system improvement program, which is and we had the lowest SSO count in utility history. So SSO is sanitary sewer overflows. So that's a big metric for us and something that we monitor regularly. We completed the advanced metering infrastructure program initial deployment. This is where we'll be able to read our meters remotely. So it's going to be a multi-year program, but we were successfully able to complete the initial deployment. We completed an affordability study of water and sewer rates within our service area. We transitioned our utilities administration staff from City Hall to Bryce Stewart Building. And we are permitting for a MSC wall, that's a mechanically stabilized earthen berm wall for the Haynes Mill Road landfill. And we expanded a landfill gas well fill system at the Haynes Mill Road landfill, and we completed several capital projects with an approximately $55 million spend. And there's been a lot of development going on in the community, which is a good thing, but we are staying on top of, making sure that our infrastructure is capable of handling the development. We work with North Carolina Department of Transportation for the Beltway projects, having to reroute some of our infrastructure. We are doing what we call master plans to make sure that, we work with Aaron King's staff and future development, make sure that we're ahead of any kind of major development that comes to this area, and our water and sewer system can handle that, those increased flows. So just a lot going on for our department. Super busy. So with that, any questions?
We have a next door neighbor, Davey County, Moxville, and they're always very close to us in terms of if they need help, we offer it, that kind of. What is the status now with Davey and their water system?
So Davey, their water system, they handle on their own. Their sewer system, we do, they send us, on the eastern side of Davey County, they send us their wastewater, their sewer flow, and we treat it. So we have an agreement with Davey on that. They are working, I think they might be building a new plant or something on the water side, but I'm not as familiar with that project.
It's interesting because Forsyth has always had a good relationship with Davey County in this regard. And today we talked about public health, we've talked about public water, public sewer. I think we've covered an awful lot of health-related items, and thank you so much for what you've given us. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments?
I said one question, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
You had a line item under the water system of $33 million for debt service. Could you just comment on what that supports?
So let me go back and find it. Which one is it?
Back to the water sewage.
This one?
Expenditures, yes.
Debt service, yes.
33.3 million debt
Yes.
service. Just comment on it.
So debt service, state loans, those are all loans that we have to pay for our capital projects. We have a huge capital project plan, and that pays for that.
Additional questions?
Yes, Chairman. Hi, Courtney. Good
Hey,
to
how are
see you. I'm so glad that you're here today, so I don't have to make a phone call. But I was wanting to know about the 10 projects that you have ongoing online, and of those 10 projects, I'm mostly interested in the Southeast area. Is that one of the projects?
So when you say online, are you talking about our dashboard on our website?
So
or-
the water and sewer projects.
Okay.
Yeah. That's okay.
So we are doing a lot of rehab projects, specifically in sewer, and that's part of the collection system improvement program that I mentioned, where we're trying to look at, over the last 5 years, we have actually inspected and cleaned half of our sewer system, and our sewer system is about 1,800 miles. So that's a lot of pipe that we've looked at. And so as we've looked at them and cleaned them and inspected them, we have found defects where we need to rehab them. So in that area, we're doing a lot of rehab. So that's probably what you're.
So is East on that list that you know of?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can definitely look at it and
If
then
you
follow
can.
up with you.
Yes, thank you.
Additional questions, comments?
And let me just follow up on Commissioner Elameen's question about the financing. Are you all selling revenue bonds for your financing? Typically, is that for all your financing?
Not all of it. It's a big majority of it, but we also have received low-interest loans from the state. They're federal loans, but managed through the state. And so we have over $100 million of loans with that.
And do you borrow money only to pay for projects, or do you borrow money for other things like
It's
vehicles?
really only to pay for projects. And we also spend, and I can't remember exactly the amount, but we also have cash that we spend, just pay, what we call pay-go. So it's cash to spend on projects. So we try to spend a certain amount of cash for those projects, and then also we have to, have loans as well to meet those needs.
But you don't finance things like vehicle replacements?
No. No, our operations is paid for by cash. So it's basically the capital projects that are funded through the loans.
Courtney Driver, we always get the best information from you. Glad you're here. You're the go-to person for, if you have any problems, any needs, any interest, just call Courtney and you'll take it
That's right.
on.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. Now, to continue our go-to action here, let's go to our county manager, Dudley Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. What we have today, we'll finalize the agenda for the August 19th meeting, which is 2 weeks out because we will not be in this room next Thursday, just as a reminder. And so we'll finalize that. We have some discussion items, two of which really are potentially action items for to be added to the agenda. So I'll dive into those when I get through with the agenda. Then we've got two other ones that are just follow-up from some discussion the board had in previous meetings. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and dive into the agenda, which is pretty manageable this time. Item 1 is a public hearing to consider the expenditure of county general funds for an economic development project and authorizing execution of an agreement with the company. You got the associated resolution if the board wishes to act on that. And I believe that I'm looking for Damon. I believe that the name of that company actually would be public at that meeting. And so we were waiting for that, but we are not authorized to release that as of this time, but by the meeting we will. Item 2 is approval of the minutes for the meeting of July 29th. Item 3 is the public session. Item 4 is an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget ordinance. It increases the capital reserve fund and transfer to debt service fund by $50,000 and decreases the budget reserve by $50,000. Lee Plunkett reviewed that if there are any questions.
Questions or comments?
All right, thank you. Item 5 is a resolution designating the Piedmont TRIAD Regional Council as the lead area agency on aging for Forsyth County for state fiscal years 2023 and 2024. You've got the associated resolution. There were a few questions about that. Kyle sent out an email in response to that, and he's here if you've got any further questions.
Questions, comments?
Appreciate the info. Answered my question.
There you go. Good, okay.
Thank you. Item 6 is a resolution selecting a construction manager at risk and authorizing execution of a contract for the pre-construction phase services for the Tanglewood Clubhouse project. You saw an early concept plan around what that would be, and more to come on that later, but this would get our construction manager started.
Questions? Okay.
All right. Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and the state of North Carolina for lease of county-owned property located at 5580 Sturmer Park Circle in Winston-Salem. Chelsea reviewed that. There were a number of questions really that dealt with activities that occurred there. I'll turn it over to Chantel to introduce Ms. Porterfield, I think, who is here with us to do a quick presentation.
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. So there were a number of items related to the Sturmer House as part of this lease, and I do have with me today Cindy Porterfield, who's the Director of the Juvenile Justice Programs for the North Carolina Department of Public Safety. So Cindy, if you want to come up.
Welcome, Cindy. Good to have you with us today.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to be here.
Ms. Porterfield, you can leave your mask on, just knowing that it's difficult to breathe sometimes. If you need to remove it for that, I think we're okay with that.
Watch out, here comes Ashley Sloop.
Okay. All right. All right.
That's a new team, Cindy and Ashley.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you so much for allowing me to be here today to share with you some information about the programming at the Forsyth sites. I'm Cindy Porterfield. I'm the Director of Juvenile Community Programs with the Department of Public Safety, Division of Adult Correction and Juvenile Justice. Ms. Robinson invited me to here today. I think you had some questions regarding the sites and the programming, the number served, et cetera. There are some things that I have shared with you. There are information handouts from Methodist Home for Children, which is the contracted entity that has both of the sites. There are two different models being run at both sites. There's also a timeline that I thought that would be good information for you to have in terms of the extent of time that it takes for us to move on some of our projects. So I'll be happy to run over that very quickly with you. First of all, I think one of the questions that you had was regarding the number of youth being served from Forsyth County that are in our facilities. And first, let me introduce the fact that this has been an unprecedented year for all of us, and there have been two major events that have happened in the last two fiscal years, half of the fiscal year prior to this one we just completed, and that was raise the age in North Carolina. In December of 2019, on December 1st, the department was in full gear to begin to address the needs of our raise the age population, which is 16 and 17-year-olds. We now embrace those in juvenile jurisdiction. Also, coupled with that was an effort to do programming expansion. But while we all were experiencing the pandemic, our section was working hard to create and expand programming for our identified target population. And so we continued our work while everybody else was slowing down. So these numbers here sort of give you some impact of the pandemic here locally in Forsyth County. There was a reduction in the numbers of youth coming through the door with our colleagues in Juvenile Services. So there were fewer juveniles coming to the juvenile justice system. However, they were bringing more complaints with them. Generally, there are about 2.5 complaints per juvenile. Of course, the pandemic slowed the number of complaints received, and what we're finding is that there's an older population that we're serving with more serious offenses.
Could you explain what you mean by a complaint?
Complaint. Generally, if there's an offense that occurs that would normally someone would get arrested for and charged for as an adult, in the juvenile system, a complaint is filed. And our juvenile court counselors look at those complaints and they determine the seriousness of the crime and the history of the juvenile. And for the most part, our colleagues in Juvenile Services work very hard to assess the needs of these youth, and we try very hard to divert them from the system. Thus, our section really deals with all juveniles, those at risk and those all the way through the continuum, additionally, those returning from our most secure facilities.
So in a sense, a complaint is like an offense.
It is like an offense, yes.
And you're able to, obviously your desire is to divert some of those in a lot of different
Yes.
ways.
Yes, so diversion happens, that complaint can become officially a petition, and then it moves through the juvenile court system, whereby there's a disposition and then usually an adjudication for more deeper.
And just from your chart, and while I've got interrupted you, the district juveniles, the district is,
Forsyth County,
it's just us?
yes. This is a one-county district.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So to your question about juveniles served in our Crisis and Assessment Center, I do want to point to the timeline here. We actually began a lease in 2015 for both of the properties, and the first endeavor was to expand an existing model of Crisis and Assessment Center, and we did so at the former detention center. Part of our charge and our effort in this partnership was to take county employees at the Bridges site and integrate them into the work that we're doing. So Methodist, our partner, was wonderful with embracing your seasoned folks that were employed at your former detention center. So this has been a win-win for all of us, including our partners in Methodist, the children being served locally, the department, and the families we serve. So in answer to your question about the number of kids, this is one of 3 in the state, and we serve regionally. So youth are served based on their needs, and those needs are assessed through Validated Risk and Needs Assessment Instrument, the OZI, and formerly the North Carolina Assessment for Risk. And so our court services colleagues reach to us to bring children into our identified programming to meet those needs. And so as you see the effects of the pandemic, whereby we dipped to 4% of the kids that were served at the Bridges Crisis and Assessment Center during the pandemic.
Excuse me, please. Could I ask one question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Could you go back to the previous page for a minute, please? I noticed that you have for fiscal 2021, I think that's 99 youth served versus 8 in Forsyth County. What's the variance there? What happened to those? The difference between the 98 and the one served in Forsyth County?
I'm sorry, what's the
You have
difference?
99 youth served?
Oh, there were 99 in total served,
Right.
and only 8 were Forsyth County resident.
So the other ones came from
kids.
which counties?
Yes.
The
So
other-
these are regionally based. We serve from the Piedmont area with the Crisis and Assessment Center located here in Forsyth County. There's also one located in Granville County on the Dillon's campus, a former unit on that campus that we repurposed for a Crisis and Assessment Center. And we serve over 300 youth in this model every year. We have another in Buncombe County at a former detention center there that we repurposed as a Crisis and Assessment Center.
So I think the question, Ms. Porterfield, is were all the youth that were referred through this program from Forsyth County served in this facility in Forsyth County? I think that's the question Commissioner Bellarmine's after.
In this data here, yes, these 8 youth, or 4% or 8%, were they served here in Forsyth County in this Crisis and Assessment Center?
So I think the question is, not all the youth that are in the juvenile justice system receive this service.
Correct.
And so this is everybody who was served in the region. And I guess the question is, were any Forsyth County youth served in another assessment center, or did all of them get routed through our facility?
Yes, at times that does happen. So for instance, if at Bridges, there are only 12 beds there, Forsyth County, in order to meet the immediate need of that child, we would transport that child to another location to get the service that they need.
So let me see if I'm getting this number-wise. So basically, in 2021, from your previous chart, there were 1,020 complaints, which I assume would represent individual people. I guess there could be more than one complaint per person.
Yes, they were created by 430 youth.
Okay.
That was 1,011, because
So
it
of
was
the
an
400
average.
Great, so I'm sorry, but of the 430 youth, then 8 of those actually went through the assessment center
In 1920.
in
excuse me.
2021. So that's kind of back to what, the difference there is the 422 went other places, some of whom apparently went to, does everybody go to assessment center?
No, sir.
No, sir. So
No. And we're finding that Juvenile Court Services is using the assessment centers when juveniles are really deeper in the system and they're having more complications. Our staff at the assessment center are credentialed. We have a psychologist and we have licensed clinical social workers, and the battery of assessments that they give are much deeper and much more comprehensive than what one would get in a community-based clinical
one
assessment.
last little question. Is it possible that someone could be served in your center that did not have a complaint this year, but was a prior year complaint?
Yes. If they had a prior year complaint, they could have been on probation, for example, and then later be served in the Crisis and Assessment Center.
Got it. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about the Crisis and Assessment Center, Forsyth County Youth?
You may continue.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask one question. So but not everyone where there's a complaint would necessarily go to a incarceration, a lockdown facility.
Correct. We want to prevent that from happening.
So of the 297 juveniles who were in the system in 2021, do you have any idea what percentage of those actually went into a lockdown facility? And I think one of the purposes of the assessment center is to figure out if they need to go into a lockdown facility or not, so.
Well, I came armed with some data here. I can give you some statistics based on youth that are detained, and I can give you information about numbers so far as that's concerned. So of those, I've got some 2-year data here, 18-19, 19-20 for youth that were distinct youth that were, this is complaints, hold on. Detention admissions, we had 88 admissions. I'm looking at 19, 20, and 21 data, and 119 admissions. I do not have the distinct data, juvenile data for that. Know that a juvenile could re-enter a detention center more than one time. To the credit of the services being delivered here, your youth development commitments in this county is very, very low for a metropolitan area. I'll give you some data on that. Our youth development centers cost approximately $107,000 a year per youth. We try to use community-based programming to prevent those costs. YDC commitments in fiscal year 19-20 were 6, and last year you had only 2 youth that were committed to a youth development center. Now, detention admission, I can get you more information and distinct juveniles. I know that that is a concern of county commissioners in terms of the cost related to a day in a detention center. We, at the same time the storm was brewing with COVID, we also had some general statute changes with House Bill 598, whereby our bound-over youth who those are the youth that through Raise the Age legislation, commit an A through G felony, which automatically sends them into the adult criminal justice system. There's a period of time of 90 days whereby the DA can deliberate and get his information together to bring forth an indictment. And so our youth were sitting in facilities, and these were adult facilities, jails, and in order to really do this work as an evidence-based practice, we know that when juveniles are introduced into an adult facility, that there's a greater likelihood that they will end up in our adult facilities later on. So Deputy Secretary Billy Lassiter and the Juvenile Justice Advisory Committee strongly recommended that we bring that population into our fold. And so therefore, House Bill 598 happened last September, and I think it's on your chart, July, excuse me, and that brought that population to juvenile justice to rest in detention. Now, please know that there is work afoot to offer general statute that would bring further back into when they are introduced into the juvenile justice court, all cases come there first, that would give the DA an opportunity to make a decision about keeping that youth in our system. Therefore, it would be probably less likely that a child would languish in a detention center for a long time. So we're working very hard with Raise the Age and some of the nuances that it has brought to correct those things. We hear from counties that this is a burden. And on our end in community programs, we've tried to offer some relief. When we had expansion funds, we didn't require a county match to your JCPC dollars because we knew that this was a gray area that we have not lived in terms of our youth entering detention and the numbers that would be created by Raise the Age.
One question, please.
Yes, sir.
You referenced 2 being processed in Forsyth County. Give us some context. 2 out of how many complaints? You said that 2 only were placed?
Placed in a youth development center, yes.
That's 2 out of how many?
2 out of your year of 2021, which if we were to go back to 2021, you had 297 kids.
Wait a minute.
You had 297 youth that had 1,020 complaints, which on average is each youth has more than one offense when they come to Juvenile Services. I also have my colleague here, Emily Coltrane. She is the area administrator. She is a court services manager, and she may be able to answer these questions better than I, since I am a community programs person. But just know that we are a 3-legged stool in juvenile justice, and we all work together, and community programs supports our court services colleagues, and we support our facility operations folks taking these kids when they come out.
Would you like to ask Emily if she'd like to come up and expand on that? And Emily, would you be happy to do that?
While she's coming up, if I understood you earlier, with 1,020 complaints, that represented
Come on up.
430 youth. And what you just said was 297. I'm just trying to get an idea of the scope, and because I thought we kind of covered that already. Maybe I'm not understanding what the 2 was a subset of the part that.
The 2 are the ones that have penetrated, in other words, from a complaint, maybe they had multiple complaints. This child ended up getting adjudicated, probably was on probation, may have had another complaint, received services along that continuum, and then committed an offense whereby their court history along with the offense created a situation where the judge ordered them to a secure juvenile facility, a youth development center. Sometimes youth commit an offense that is serious enough that it would take them all the way to the end of the continuum, the secure youth development center. But Emily?
what Ms. Porterfield is saying is correct. We work really hard to provide services here in the community prior to placing a juvenile in any of our facilities. And sometimes it does get to that point where it's safer for the community and better for the kid to be served in a youth development center. However, once a kid goes to a youth development center, we are planning for that juvenile to be released. And that juvenile is coming back to the community. So again, we jump in and provide any services that you all have available here in your county, or any services that we can get this juvenile across the state. We work very well with community programs and our other counterparts in juvenile justice to get kids from whatever county they're from in the area, and I cover the Piedmont area, but really get them services wherever they need it. And I also have Dennis Caldwell here, which is a court services supervisor here locally. And we were just talking about how hard him and his staff have worked to keep these kids out of youth development centers and really get them services. We have conversations all the time. You know, it's not about what we have available. It's about also creating programs that we need. And that's why we work so very well with community programs and keeping up with trends and data and looking at what counties need, where the gaps are. We do that gaps analysis all the time, looking at services. And do you have any questions?
Is part of what you do, does that connect with gangs at all?
Yes, actually, Stan Clarkson, which is the chief court counselor here, he's on vacation. I'm sure he would love to be here. But we have had presentations, and Ms. McDaniel has been a part of that, talking about gangs in the Piedmont area, particularly here in Forsyth County, along with Guilford County as well. And we've talked about programming, and Ms. Porterfield has been a part of that, and she can elaborate on that.
We answered to the call of the city of Winston-Salem back last year and came and offered some suggestions. We educated law enforcement in Winston-Salem PD, Greensboro on an EKG, it's a gun violence prevention program and curriculum. It's to be delivered in the schools, and of course we were in a pandemic. So we have recognized gun violence in the area. People are out and about in their cars and leaving them unlocked, and we found the trend of kids getting a hold to weapons and using them. And so we've got to educate people better, and we also need to address the gun violence.
I'm interested that you called it weapons, and that's what I called it. And having a gun is a weapon. That's all the comment I have to make. Glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. So
I wasn't going to do this, but now I feel I have to. At one point, we mapped Forsyth, I think it was, Dudley, did a focus on where crimes are committed, gang crimes, shooting, all this sort of stuff. Do y'all do the same thing?
we do. We can do that. And we are also assisting you. I know we contributed community programs, $50,000 toward a gang assessment for Forsyth County. We are actively involved in helping you in your problem solving with this population. It's a unique population, and there are some tried and true measures that work. We've had the privilege of having.
I do mean to interrupt you, but can you give me some idea of what works?
Well,
Because we struggle with that all the time. What actually impacts the behavior?
Well, I'm not an authority on this, but we do know that getting prevention early on and belonging for kids and having them connected to their schools, having them well connected to their schools and communities, church, helps to give the sense of belonging to children that oftentimes a gang gives them. We also do a lot of intervention work with families. So there are a number of things that contribute to that, but I think what raises its head a lot in the literature is the belonging and certain developmental, key developmental indicators that children lean into. So, for example, when they're very, very young, they look to the mentor, the teacher. And so when you hear your grandchildren or your children talk about the teacher, that's their person when they're very, very young. Children need those kinds of role models very, very young. And then it's the peer.
Well, how do you impact the relationship between a teacher and a student?
We don't. We do programming in the school. We try to educate our communities, trauma-informed care, for example. We want our educators to know that these children are experiencing a great deal of trauma. And we have partnered with nonprofits and the schools to do that work.
Okay, thank you.
And Chairman, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll go along with Ted. If you can just tell us, what do you need from us? That's more important to me.
Yes. Well, I'm here do you want me to continue to we need our facility. And I'll tell you why. I realize that in the data that we're presenting to you, this clearly says that there were no Forsyth County kids in our transitional living facility, which is the site located right behind the detention center. This is a unique model. It deals with 16 and 17-year-olds, and we're opening the door now to begin to serve them more. I will tell you, however, is that Forsyth County is being served in other ways in community programs. We do offer services. We sent 18 juveniles into other evidence-based model programs last fiscal year. So we're meeting them at their need. What we need from you is to allow us to continue the work that we're doing at the sites. We have a huge investment in those properties, along with investment of contracts with Methodist Home to administer these two models.
I think one of our questions last week had to do with how much money you all did invest in fixing and kind of remodeling the Sturmer House.
$94,604.
And you've been using it, this was a 3-year lease that's now expiring, am I correct about that?
Yes, sir. I think it's to renew. It was to renew in July, and I think it was moving through our P&L department, contract department.
Yeah, it's not that we want to boot you out. The question is, we have sort of a need for about 8 spaces. That were kind of some residential spaces, kind of more of a mental health issue, and nothing to do with this. And it's not that we don't want to, we're just trying to say, if we turn around and build another building, if we build a building for this, and we already have a building, that's kind of creating the dilemma. And I realize, obviously, we were happy to have, the building was sitting idle. We were glad for you to be there, glad for you to serve certainly wanted to serve our kids, but we didn't object to you serving more, certainly. I think that is just our dilemma. It has nothing to do with, well, if it were full of our students, our children, that'd be that makes it a little different. That's why that question was asked, how many? And then we did want to know what kind of investment the state had. And if you spent millions of dollars fixing the place up, then obviously you've got a different, of course, from the state standpoint, I don't believe I'd lease something only 3 years, so if I put $1 million in it. So you've kind of given us the scope of kind of where you are, but we're not like, we don't want to boot you all out. We need a space, and do we build another space when we got one that we're basically giving to the state? That's kind of our issue.
Yes, and I certainly understand that. We have a unique model in Union County whereby we received a group home that was previously managed by DSS, and we took ownership of it, and as part of the lease, we offered up an emergency bed. And so that is our partnership with them. We have offered up and the bed, and Methodist administers the same model. Their cognitive behavioral intervention model is a value-based therapeutic model to those youth too, and so they benefit from the placement in the emergency bed. Ms. Robinson and my team had some dialogue about that, and we shared our model in Union County. So I think that we want to be open to help you with your problem, because it also is ours for our population. We've had difficulty with mental health placements, and we certainly understand the dilemma.
Thank you. It's been helpful. I've learned a lot.
Doing a good job, Cindy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you today.
Thank you so much.
All right, item 8 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a lease agreement between Forsyth County and the City of Winston-Salem as joint landlords and the Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Utility Commission for lease of county-owned property at 6315 Amp Drive. Chelsea Swain reviewed that. Any questions?
Nope.
All right. Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the acceptance of easements from the City of Winston-Salem related to the construction and operation of the new Caladium Museum located at 120 West 3rd Street. Chelsea also reviewed that.
Comments?
All right, and then item 10 is the last property matter. It's a resolution authorizing the grant and execution of a Duck Bank utility easement to Duke Energy Carolinas LLC to construct and access utility lines across Forsyth County-owned real property located at 120 West 3rd Street, which also supports the Caladium project.
Questions? Nope.
All right. Item 11 and 12 are both refunds. Item 11 is a resolution approving refunds by the tax collector assessor in the amount of $1,403.92 that generate from the North Carolina vehicle tax system. And then item 12 is refunds in the amount of $335.53 for over $100. And item 13 is also a tax assessor.
Comments or
refund.
questions?
Okay. All right. That is it then, the pretty straightforward agenda. Mr. Chairman, we have a couple of items that are really discussion items related to the agenda. The first one is the Highland Avenue property. It is not on the agenda. We did not take action at the formal meeting a week ago. So really the question is, do we go ahead and add that in the same format to the agenda for the 19th?
Thoughts on the matters?
I remember asking Kirby about a couple of items. I've gotten I actually had some conversation with the Metropolitan folks late this morning. But I'm just kind of curious about the answer that, if he got an answer. I mean, part of it had to do with if they had the property that we're talking about, our property, would that increase their number of homes? I think I sort of answered that. And the other part is, if the city did not take this over as a park, were they prepared to sort of take care of it? To maintain that park, if the city, because that was kind of, our presentation talked a lot about, with Councilman Scipio about that.
There was an email that was sent
Must have missed that.
yesterday morning from Kirby, from Mr. Jerron Norman. That was forwarded, I believe, to board members. Did we get hard copies on that one by any chance?
No, we got, I saw it.
Did it come from Ashley? Did you send it, Ashley? Yeah. Well, let me see if I missed it. Hang on.
Yeah, and so the answer to the second question, I can read it, or we can. It's a lot to read. And I did not see Kirby.
Which is the question about the city part? What's the answer?
Let's see. It's.
I think I see it.
Yeah, it's that last bullet. The church was willing to step up and foot the bill to make this happen with the goal of syndicating the purchase and sale with the city. The cities needed to support the development and maintenance of a public space. They were willing to donate time and energy to develop health inclusive design. While a green space on this parcel does not add to the total number of affordable units on our current project, it adds to the overall appeal of the project and community. We need to be able to attract tenants at different income levels to make economics work. And then he had a lot of stuff at the front part of that about the urban green space. East End Master Plan currently calls for urban green space in areas of the East End.
I think I got an answer to that, and I'll tell you how I interpreted the answer. But nothing about the city taking care of the park or not. Maybe I missed. I see it.
There was a lot there.
Yeah. Well, I had this. Basically, they're not at the point of knowing. They have ideas of how many units generally is what they have. They have to have X amount of green space. This gives them more flexibility. If they have more green space, pick up another acre, they have more space. It kind of solves part of their green space challenges. But they're not at a point that they can answer the question, how many additional units would they be able to construct if they had that green space. Because I think I indicated, part of my thinking had been, my interest in the thing was increasing the number of affordable, low income, we had all these semantic issues of low income versus affordable housing, was the reason I was interested in it to begin with, and had certainly understood why Holland Homes would be in a position, to do that because they could manage it from their existing site. So the answer to that question is not clear, whether it gives them flexibility in their design. And as the developer said, if Metropolitan wanted more units, then they work for Metropolitan. If Metropolitan wanted to have more units, they could certainly do that. And so, but none of those are like and I wouldn't expect an exact number, just like Holland Homes doesn't have an exact number. They think they might be able to put 50
Down to
units.
that option C, workforce housing, it gets a little bit to that.
Mr. Manager, would you like me to share that on the
Oh, I've
screen?
got the email. If that's what, you're talking about that email? I scanned it.
Yeah, and in that little section, they said if the city was not able to purchase the site from,
Oh, yeah, I scanned it.
there's 80 to 90, and then they talk about they're planning an additional 220 on some additional land that they're talking about now. So, we can certainly ask
Oh, I see it. I see that. Yeah.
them to come in and address it. It was such a long response. That was really my question. We could put it back on the agenda, and then we could ask Mr. Norman and, and the folks from Holland Homes to come in, to be here, unless we just need to do some more work on it. I don't know.
That's right. I apologize for missing that, because this answer really gets at, I'd have been in a better position in my call today, but the answer I got today was more of a presentation of what we had seen before, basically. I mean, it's obviously a good project, but it's not at the final stages pieces of it. I mean, to get it, they have big picture numbers of what they're looking at, but that's helpful. This actually is helpful.
So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could make a comment, please.
Let me go right ahead.
There's a perception out there, I've gotten about 3 or 4 emails, very detailed, some 3 or 4 pages long, about how unfair we have been to United Metropolitan Church. So I would like for us to give them a chance to come in and make their presentation, so we can hear the full story, ask some questions, and then make a decision after that concerning this property.
Yeah, I agree with that. That makes a good sense. How do the rest of the commissioners feel about it? Commissioner?
Talking about moving it off of next agenda and starting again after August 19th.
I think that
It just about have to be done that way, I think.
I would prefer that we take it up after the next. I think they need to somehow get together. This is kind of weird to put us in the middle of it.
So we could certainly invite them in for a presentation on the 19th, as Commissioner Elamine mentioned, and then make a decision to put it that next Thursday. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Any problem with that?
No, it's good.
Okay.
Okay. The second item really bubbled up after the Human Services Advisory Committee meeting, I believe last night. So I'll turn it over to Chantel. There's a recommendation that sort of came through them around some respite that is certainly justified. So.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and good afternoon, Commissioners. The resolution before you is seeking approval to authorize the county manager to modify operating hours for the Department of Public Health in response to the pandemic. As you are aware, Health Department staff has led the COVID-19 response for the community since March 2020, including organizing and developing community-wide testing, tracing, and vaccination efforts. COVID-19 has consumed the organization and the facilities for a year and a half, including nights and weekends, and required an all-hands-on-deck approach across all divisions to ensure the normal duties of the department have been completed along with COVID-19 response. Operationally, the staff and physical facilities are in need of a period of respite to prepare for the increase in virus spread and demand for testing, tracing, and vaccinations. Yesterday, the Health and Human Services Board voted unanimously to close the Department of Public Health building on September 2nd and 3rd to provide a period of respite and preparation for staff. Staff would be available for emergency situations as required by law, and vaccinations would be coordinated during this period of time as well. We are now seeking commissioner approval to modify the operating hours on those dates. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Comments from commissioners or questions?
I'll make one comment. I will certainly be able to support this, and there's no question that the staff need the respite period. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in this county that should think that they need it, that they do not deserve that and need that. I'm probably, generally speaking, not in favor of closing the center for a period of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Monday is Labor Day, but a weekend and the 2 days before, and probably would have preferred that it had been split between a group doing, half the group doing that 5 days, and then half the group doing another 5 days, which would be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But I have no problem supporting the resolution. I mean, I'm in favor. I just think it probably could have been done in shifts so that we could have had basically the health department open for business on the normal days. But but there's no question about the staff deserving the break. No question about it.
Additional comments?
We move for a vote, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Move for a vote.
Yeah, we would add this on. We would add this on the agenda for the 19th, so we'll just have it as an added walk-in item. Okay. All right.
Excuse me, I think the one problem I have, and I know that we can't vote, but if those folks are going to have some time off, I'd like to give them an opportunity to make some plans. If we wait until the 19th, that doesn't give very much time to make plans for having 4 days off.
My suspicion is that they're going to...
They already know.
That it is news now, and it will travel quickly, so
They can make plans.
we'll make sure that.
Yeah, staff's not aware at all. Obviously, this is a public meeting, so they will be. And so, it sounds like there will be majority support, and so, we'll essentially tell them it's not formal till it's formal, but that this is on the agenda.
Okay.
Well, I certainly don't have a problem with it, so... I think you're right. Most the commissioners, unless I'm wrong, I don't think I am. If you have any questions or comments on it, good idea to say it now. And obviously, we're all for it. So,
Very good. Third item also has, potentially has some implications on the agenda item. I understand that Scott Piper, who is was chair of the Smith Reynolds Airport Advisory Board, he has stepped down, so there is a portion of a term that is remaining, and so I know there's some interest in getting that filled just out of the necessity of the business that they conduct there, and I do think there's some interest in in filling that with a particular person who has applied, I think, in the past. But anyway, I'll maybe turn it over to Commissioner Kaplan to kind of address that.
Thank you. Before you is a resolution that would appoint Clarence Lamb Jr. to serve the remaining term of Scott Piper on the board. It's about 4 months. The board was concerned that replacing under the normal circumstance would take about 3 months, 2 to 3 months, and that this would be a sort of a bridge to that, and then at the end of which would be December, it would become an opening, and the folks would have to apply like they normally do and go on down the road. So this is basically a 4 to 5 month appointment, and I hope that the board can see fit to make this resolution happen on the 19th.
I just comment, Mr. Chairman, that I agree with that's not a problem, but just as a general precedence, have we ever appointed for someone for interim, to fill an interim term on our boards and committees? Is that, I'm just curious as a precedent, have we ever done that before? That you're aware of, Ashley, if you remember?
We appointed some folks to the Airport Commission just last year that are up for, that terms will be up for very shortly as well, and we named them. in the, name their position and in some cases, their actual name. I think one was Jed McMillan, if I'm correct, and then another one was Michael Bond. So this would basically fit in with that effort. And then, of course, they've got to apply as well.
Well, my understanding is that, yeah, that was like an expansion for another temporary sort of thing. But it was not unusual and customary either. So on any of our, let me just ask it this way. Take the airport commission out of the picture, airport boards. Are you have any recollection we've ever done interims on any other board for a period of time to fill a vacancy during that time?
I cannot recall since I've been clerk.
I didn't think so, but just as a matter of, I mean, I have no problem supporting this, but I was curious if we had a precedent of that. And we don't.
Additional comments or questions? Okay.
All right, very good. So next, actually, there's one other item I didn't mention, but the next item was the Animal Services Advisory Board recommendation. You heard some discussion of those at the last meeting. I think my recommendation on this one, given that it has some budget implications, particularly around the licensing piece of that, would be to kind of push that off to a winter work session topic. And we could deal with it in some detail in winter work session, and then that would roll into the budget, and we might have some guidance going into budget to either not have that. It has implications for Sheriff's Department staffing because you've got people there who do that work. The alternative to that would be to go ahead and dive into that a little bit deeper and then make a decision about whether or not to do away with licensing kind of mid-year. Anyway, felt like it might just raise its head as a winter work session topic, but however y'all want us to handle that one.
I think you got a good point. Yeah, Senator Kaplan, I'm sorry. Commissioner Kaplan said he likes it too, so. Anybody else have any comments on it?
Well, I'm fine with pushing it to then too. We didn't have time to discuss that last week because there was a reception at 5 o'clock. We were running really late, but while we were doing it, I was pretty struck by, we're talking about a $200,000 issue here with 120 or 30 in fees and 77,000 in staff, additionally, that was paid, that basically there was no discussion of doing, there was a belief we're going to still have this $200,000 expenditure, and the only thing we were going to do is not license dogs and cats, or dogs, I guess. And so I'm kind of going, wait a minute, there's something wrong with that picture. So I guess, I think pushing it off and discussing it in winter work session is a great idea.
Yeah, because really you need to do it, or it seems logical to do it in context with what are the budget implications of that. So, okay, very good. So we'll be prepared for that. And then the last item I had was just we had some discussions about formalizing meeting protocols. And so I believe you've got the work that Gordon and Ashley and I did on kind of outlining what the current practice of things were. Frankly, maybe the issue around how to handle partial term type stuff for appointments could fall into this as well. And so really the question is, do we continue to operate with, one difference is now they're actually written, and so the practice is outlined, and so we've got something that we can kind of refer back to. The other option would be to formalize it. Instead of being common law married, just going to get married. So however y'all want to do that.
Well, I don't know why I'm laughing at that.
That's the only analogy I can think of. Yeah, it's been a long day. So.
That's okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
I was just going to say, I probably think I don't care. I think following is what is more important than anything. And that we have it, and I think it needs to be in writing somehow, like you say, whether it's common law or whatever it is. I think we need to capture it. But I have a question for you in terms of just action today, because I like but we're not exactly following this, because we just added an item. We had a couple things we had been discussing that we went ahead and put on the meeting for the 19th, but we added one today at the briefing on the airport commission piece that does not fit the category the catch-all category for items are the very last thing that says, any matter the board feels the need to address in an emergency where the county would suffer substantial damage if the board does not take immediate action. Appointing an interim airport commissioner does not meet that standard, I think. And I think if we ought to go back up to number 2 and make a comment that says that, you know, that as we come into the second briefing, if something did emerge from the second briefing and was discussed like on the second briefing, it could be added. Because essentially, if we say we're following this, we didn't follow it today. So if we want to be able to do that, I think we ought to allow that to make a comment about that. Because you can make a comment before the second briefing. Commissioner may request from the manager additional information, either verbally or in writing. And it also says you as the manager are going to, you know, to massage the discussions and adjust that briefing item for the action for the second briefing. So I think that could include, you know, an adjustment to an item that could be discussed. I mean, I think if we got information a week ahead and this does not happen regularly, I think that's okay. I think that'd be fine, but we still don't quite have what we did today covered.
Additional comments?
If I may, the danger in that is that you would be voting on something you've never seen in writing. So today, the slight difference is you did have presented to you a piece of paper with
Yes.
that proposal
I
on it.
agree, and I would have, and that's, but even that does not fit this. I mean, what's on here does not say if you get something in writing as a second briefing, it's okay. It says you're going to have a first briefing. I mean, it says each agenda item is briefed in full by either the county staff or manager at the first briefing. Commissioners may ask questions, you know, of staff during the briefing, request clarification, discuss the item. The board does not vote on the item. Before the second briefing, commissioners may request from the manager additional information, either verbally or in writing. And we do that, and that happens. Based upon commissioners' comments or upon new information, the manager may make modifications to any agenda item. To modification any agenda item, not a new item, but any agenda item. And says the manager shall provide the amendment item to the board before the second briefing. That's the amendment. And then the agenda items are briefed at the second briefing, so on. It doesn't say anything about presenting a new idea for at the second briefing in writing. And I think it should be in writing in doing it, but this does not allow for that, at least the way I read it. Think about it. I'm not trying to, this is kind of splitting hairs, but just think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably, I would think that appointments would be an exception, just in general.
By the way, Commissioner Kaplan said it's time to adjourn. What do you think? We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
If you don't mind, Chairman, I just need a few moments of your time, of the board's time as well. First of all, I wanted to thank Dudley so much for his leadership during the meetings for the multi-purpose use of the Agricultural Event Center project for these last two community meeting sessions. I wanted to tell this board that you guys have about 20 years senior experience over me in the districts, and it's important for me to listen. So in listening, I've learned history during this 2 weeks of this particular matter, and I'm glad that you guys weren't here actually, because poor Dudley, I felt like he needed a bulletproof vest when he came into some of these meetings. But he did an amazing job. Thank you for being professional, your integrity, and respect to the citizens here in Forsyth County. The meetings were very, very contentious if you watched them or if you heard messages or whatever. He's not quitting, and we're not asking him to resign. He is our county manager, and we trust him. And I also wanted this board to also realize that and support the survey and evaluate the options that could possibly be available for this. Again, you guys have experience around these, the district and working with these individuals, but this is my first experience, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of that. So thank you.
Commissioner Linville?
No comments about anything.
Okay, we have a motion. I'll second the motion. Any further comments before we adjourn?
Just 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. Go
Young
right
lady
ahead.
at 308 Mayfield Drive. Hello, Mama.
What was that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We adjourn.